So let's take her all the way back here, back to the beginning. So like, how did this whole thing come apart or come together rather, not apart, come about is what I was going for. How did this come about? I'm sure you've been asked this before, and just the beginning story of Technique Roofing Systems.
Well, I guess I can speak to that. I mean, 1987, I went to work for a construction company doing roofs. I was there a few months, and I thought to myself, well, I can do this without these guys. They're just not that good. And, of course, I wasn't ready at that time and really had no idea. But that fire continued to burn brighter. And eventually, Keith would come home from college.
I graduated college in 1998. I was born in 1991.
and eventually, I would get him a job. He would come work for that same company. We would actually work together quite a bit. I would move on to another company, and basically in a higher position, and he would follow right along with me. And then eventually it came down to an ethical thing. But I still knew I wanted to be in the roofing contracting business by myself. It was really just a matter of, how were we going to make the finances work? We knew how to do roofs, from really the hardest to the easiest. We had no idea what the finances looked like. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of how we got started, just on a wing and a prayer, and really in an emotional moment.
Well, when a lot of family businesses start, I don't think you sit down and you have this long drawn out plan of what you're going to do, and you have these certain steps you're going to make until you get ready to start your family business. And you really don't look at it as a family business when you're really starting it. In the 90s when we started, it was almost a survival business. It wasn't, we're going to build this great mammoth thing. Obviously, you have dreams of something like that maybe happening, but at the time when you're starting, it was a different time. Every time is different, no matter what generation you're in. And this was just our different time. And we worked with a company that we could do all the hard things, but the things that we didn't know are the things you didn't know. And them are, but we knew we could sell it, we could get there, we could install it, and we could make you happy because we already were doing those things. So it was just a natural progression. And plus we had a ace in the hole. Our dad would push us that way, whether we be on the farm, planting or working on the farm or whatever we're doing. We always had really, great support through our father. And he was really, he wasn't in the business, but you don't have to be in this exact business to understand business. And, just push someone that way. Maybe they can, get it figured out and help you along the way. So.
Well, talk more about that. Like, what role did he play in kicking off the company?
Dad didn't play much of a role kicking off the company. Basically, I pulled my old business law book out of that I had in college. I wrote up a partnership agreement. We signed it. We started with a little less than $10,000. You have to keep in mind we were not wealthy people at all. We were, we just didn't have much money. It was more of a prayer and a dream than anything else.
Yeah, I think a lot of the money we had, our grandpa gave us CDs for baptism, graduate from catechism. My grandma and grandpa, I don't want to.
U.S. savings bond.
U.S. savings bond,
Mm-hmm.
and for our birthdays and stuff, and I always thought that was like, what am I going to do with these things? I found something cooler, man. So, but luckily, thankfully, they gave us them, because if they just gave me cash, I don't know, I'd be able to spend on something stupid. But when the time came and I really needed some money because I had a young child, and they were there, and it was very, I'll never forget that. It was great to have that, just that little bit to help you. It just made it a little bit easier for you. It just made you think you could, get there because you had that little, just that little bit you had. I just need a little bit more, and I think we put it together, and we can really, try to start out with this thing, and he had a lot of cheerleaders, helping you and thinking, work hard, you can make anything in life. That's really what it is. Work hard, you can really keep your nose down, keep your mind at it, and it will come to you.
Yeah, in that first 6-8 months, we did a lot of. We might have cleaned your yard up. We might have shingled your roof. We wanted to get a Duralast license. It was just very difficult to get, and we had no credit between the two of us, and we could not find a bank willing to give us more than $25,000. And we needed a credit line desperately. And our father really helped us in this matter. He had knew the president of Old Fort Bank, PM Gilmore, and he set a meeting up for Keith and I to go see PM. And we went to that meeting, just two young guys. I think I was 25 or 26.
I was 21. You were 25, Kurt. Yeah.
And anyway, we went in there, and of course we didn't have like a written strategic business plan or anything. We just told him, what we wanted to do, and we told him we knew how to work hard, and
we sat across the table like this, and we just looked him in the eye and told him what we wanted to do.
And then he stood up and he put his hand on our shoulder, and he said, "I'm going to put you two boys in business."
That's what I said.
That's really how we got started.
That happens every day nowadays. You go to any bank, and they'll do that same thing nowadays. Yeah, right. It's an unbelievable story, but that's how it happened.
He took a risk on us, and he gave us a $75,000 line of credit that was a signature note. Yep. And that's really when our company began to start to move forward.
That's what, 2 years in, or like a year in?
That was inside the first year.
Inside the first year?
Probably 6 months. Yeah. We were trying to really get our
February of '93. We finally got the credit line. We were basically out of money.
When you did something, you needed paid for something. It was all about cash flow. That's what it is, about cash flow. We had none.
So talk to me about like the first 5 to 10 years then, like so after that is all taken care of, now you got that, you can start operating a little bit, buying some materials. Like, how did that go, getting employees, everything?
Well, I mean, the first few years, basically Keith and I were young. We could work 100 hours a week, and we didn't need many employees, one or two to pick up after us, because we could do it all. And so, but we were growing, and we're starting to realize, wow, we're getting calls, here, calls there. And then all of a sudden one day, a huge company like Wendy's International calls and tells us, "Kurt, this is your lucky day." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, Bob Barton tells me, 'Kurt, this is your lucky day. My roofer just retired, and I'm going to give you a chance. And I'm going to call 2 other roofers, and whoever does the best job on the roofs I give them is getting all my business.'"
Well, I was like, that was the greatest day ever.
And so you had 2 little eager beavers that dropped everything they were doing, ran down to Cincinnati, measured 2 Wendy's restaurants as fast as they humanly could, ordered the materials, and worked day and night till they were done inside of 1 week.
Yeah, but it didn't all go the plan though, because we had a problem when we got the one done, Yeah. But I think that was a really good lesson to be learned. I think we got the one done, and we had some problems with it, and we went back and we fixed it. And I remember, I think that was one of them deals where, you know, everything's great until there's a problem. And what happens when there's a problem? And I think it's how we took care of the problem with him that really solidified us to move forward. You know, because he knew we would take care of our problems. Because there's no questions asked. We went down, took care of it, we fixed it, we moved on.
Of course, we did not hear from Bob for a while there. And then all of a sudden one day we got a phone call, and Bob's like, "That's the best roof I've ever seen." And I think he gave us 30 or 32 more restaurants.
It was some crazy number. It was like 500 in my mind.
And I think in my mind, in that point, I just started realizing, my gosh, we might have a roofing company. This might be a real business. You know what I mean? We're hooked up with these guys, and them events right there would start to change the tide at Technique Roofing, because now we were able to tell customers like Arby's that, hey, we're doing 30 roofs for Wendy's International. Why wouldn't you have Technique Roofing do your roofs? And they agreed.
Yeah. Max and Irma's, Arby's.
So we started getting all these restaurants because they all know each other. And they switch between each other. And that's really how our business took off. So I imagine by 95, we were pretty much starting to hit max of what we could physically do.
Yeah.
And at that point, what did the makeup of the company look like?
I imagine we were probably 6 employees at that point in time, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, probably 6, yeah.
Is everybody working on the crew?
Yeah, we had.
Yeah, no office personnel other than part-time. One part-time secretary, my wife's mom.
Mm-hmm. Probably right there in like 97, I think we were doing a lot of work for Mid-American Management Corporation, and we ended up splitting up. You know, we were doing all them Arby's.
But after 95, yeah, we grew to probably 12 employees by the end of the 90s, and
we were really putting them down, man. We weren't selling. I mean, we weren't having full-time sales. We were just more or less like full-time installing, and just keeping up.
We didn't have a lot of time to have disagreements. A lot of times Keith took one crew, I took the other crew. We worked all the time.
Yeah, we had no one to measure roofs for us. I don't even remember how we did that. How did we go measure them and work? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, sometimes I didn't get it done, and we'd run low on work because I wasn't selling. And eventually I got to realize that, I got to sell more, because selling part-time, they can put more roofs down than what I can sell part-time.
Yeah, because we were going like, we would go work, and it, wow, we have nothing. What's going on? Work, and it, you know, it was up and down. You know, we were always working, but all of a sudden we'd run against this, like, we don't have no more work.
Well, we had a series of events that really helped our company. But at the time, and the very end of 99, I believe it was, we thought it was devastating. So Mid-American Management and Arby's were 2 of our just big customers.
Feeding us, man.
We're talking probably $1 million a piece. And Arby's sold out, which was Cybra, the Triarch. Okay, sold out. That was gone. And then a month later, the guy that we did all the work for Mid-American, he left the company, and the new guy come in, and he wouldn't even talk to us.
We were cancer.
And so all of a sudden, we're like, we hadn't been out selling because we had all this repeat business.
Yeah, just kept giving us work, and you know, we couldn't go out and sell any work, because if we went and sold any more work, we wouldn't be able to get their work done. And you know, we were living, you know, we thought we're killing it, man. We're going to make a killing this year. And all of a sudden someone
And that was like
put a stop right to
99, 2000.
Yeah, somewhere in that.
That's about 8 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And our company's starting to get bigger.
And we moved a couple times. We were in a different location, and they let us have our dealership in a certain location, and then we kind of moved back closer to where we're from, with it, with the multiple moves, just that's how it worked out for us till we ended up back where we are right now.
So, like, around that time period, after that happens, like you thought you're planned out for the whole year, that happens. What did you guys do as far as, like, just went full sales mode? Like,
Panicked.
we're a sales organization.
We panicked.
I mean,
your natural reaction at first is just to start feeling sorry for yourself.
Beg the guy to keep his job. Literally.
And you do that for a while, and then you realize, well, nobody else is feeling sorry for me. I guess I'm going to have to get off my dead butt and make it happen, because there's no other leadership here to make it happen. Mm-hmm. You have to count on you and your partner. And Keith did the work, and it really, the sales fell to me at that point in time. So I had to get out there and figure out how to make it happen. And we had resources and we had help. Yeah. And it did. At that point in time, that's when you first finally start believing in yourself. A lot of this, you got to believe in yourself. I don't know for sure that I 100% believed in myself for a long time. Eventually you learn, that, hey, you got to believe in yourself first, because people can see it when you're selling.
Well, and that too, it sometimes it didn't help back then, when you're 21 or 22 or 24 to go sell a roof to them. A lot of our people are, business owners. A lot of them guys were in their 50s. I can always remember, man, when I turn 50, I'll be able to sell roofs every day. These guys will buy from me all the time, Like you go out there and someone would say, hey, I'm going to sell you a 15, back then, 15-year roofs were a big deal. I'm going to sell you a 15-year-old roof. I'll never forget the guy asked me, oh, yeah? You going to sell me? Yeah. I'm like, yep, it's going to last you 15 years. He's like, hey, Keith, where were you 15 years ago? I'm like, 15 minus 22. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was taking orders from my mom. I was being told what time to come home at night 15 years ago.
You weren't allowed. You weren't allowed out at night 15 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't responsible enough for myself 15 years ago. So
or we'd be working on the roof, and somebody would come up to us and say something. We'd be like, oh no, you don't want to do that. And they're like, well, I'm going to need to talk to your boss.
Like, okay, let me go get him.
You just go to the. He'll give you a call.
I heard that multiple times.
That was the challenging part. I think was you just never think you'd wish you're older, but I was like a 10-year-old sometimes. I just wanted to be older. You know what I mean? It's because I thought, man, that'd give me credibility if I had some years on me. And I feel that way now sometimes. When I go somewhere and they're like, I want to do this or that, I'm like, yeah, we're not. I've already tried that. That's not going to work. I really want to work for you, but it just ain't going to happen, man. I think that's that confidence Kurt talks about.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, what was a real breakthrough for you guys? I mean, a lot of family companies struggle to, a lot of companies struggle with, like, what to charge and, knowing their costs and having a strong administrative, part of the company to keep things smooth. Like, what was like a breakthrough for you guys as far as in that like beginning 15 years that got you?
I mean, we started to realize that we did not have the management process to manage our company in the 2000s, especially in the early 2000s, that we were too big, and one person sitting in an office could not control everything and watch everything and overlook the finances, and we had no idea what our costs were. And we knew how to put down roofs. We knew how much time it took, but we didn't know what the costs really were and every single penny associated with it. So without knowing the exact cost, it was hard to know what to charge. And so we were kind of yo-yoing our profit. We could be highly profitable. Our profit could drop 50-60% the next year for no reason, reason that we could figure out.
Well, and you guys were still in the you could be you could get a job because you're competitive still because you're a young company. Like you could be the cheap. You could sell on price
we're
still.
very lean.
Like because
We didn't know. We were a traveling company.
We go wherever.
So we learned early down in Columbus, Ohio, doing a project for an architect called MBBJ that cheap doesn't sell. And that lesson stuck with us for a long time. But just because you charge more doesn't mean you make more. You might just spend more. And so we had to figure out that end of it. And in 2004, we met a fellow by the name of Henry Goodrow. And he taught us how to run technique roofing and to be profitable. And I mean, I thank him to this day, but his system works. And as you know, Keith and I adapted it to 2 other businesses. And it really doesn't matter where you apply it, it works. But you physically have to do the work. There's no magic pill. That's one thing he taught us. There's no magic pill. It's all the same no matter where you go. But you got to do the work. You got to put the time in.
Yeah, he called it people would have an entrepreneurial seizure. It really stuck with me, that whole line. And that's right. You know, you could be the greatest HVAC guy in the world. You could fix any HVAC unit. You could tear one apart, put it back together. But you know what? It didn't make you a good business guy. It just made you a really good technician. And you have a bunch of technicians out here trying to run businesses. And his whole thing was, I'm going to take you technicians and I'm going to show you how to run a business. And I'm going to show you how to make money. It's not really complicated. It's a pretty simple process. All you got to do is put these things in place and do your work, do your homework, and do this and repeat the same thing over and over again. I think that was our thing. Was we had these bigger jobs we make money on, and then we wouldn't make as much money maybe on the littler jobs because we just sit there with a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm like, okay, we'll charge this much, we'll figure out this much, and okay, now we'll just total that up and da. And then, you know, you weren't making the same maybe profit margin on a larger job than you did on a smaller job. Well, how do you know? Do you know maybe your smaller jobs are better than your larger? Can you tell me the answer to that? Well, I don't know all. You know, we had to figure that out.
So one of the things that happens when you don't know, you tend to listen to the noise. So we would go to conventions, and this guy would be like, well, I'm charging $3 a square foot. I've been doing roofs for $250, $275. So all of a sudden you find yourself starting to do things like that. Well, these guys are doing $275. I can do $275. He's doing $3, so I'm going to get $3. And what Henry would say is, no, Kurt, Keith, your business is unique to your business. He said, forget what all the rest of them guys are doing, okay? Because he says chances are they don't know what they're doing. And he's like, I've surveyed them, and 95% of them have no idea. He says, this is the system that works no matter what business you put in it. Just follow it, and it's made for your business. And that's really what we did. It wasn't easy, though. We stopped. 3 months did it take us, Keith? Mm-hmm. After I come home?
3 months, like just to give people an idea of like how much time commitment it was.
It was about a 3 months time commitment, probably 8 hours a day.
Trying to figure out, you know, how to charge.
I mean, we still worked. We just did it after work.
You wanted to figure out how to charge the exact same amount, whether it was a 100,000 square foot building or if it was a 2,500 square foot building, and them numbers would work on either building. You'd make money, you know, certain percentage, exact same percent on each, whether you did this job or that job. So at the end of the year, as long as you worked so many hours, the result should have been the same whether we did a bunch of 100,000 square foot buildings or unless we did a bunch of 2,000 square foot buildings. Mm-hmm. That was the process we were trying to do. Yeah. And it was, and it stuck with me forever because I don't worry about what everyone else does. You know, I know some guys like they just bid things a certain square foot and that's what they do. I that's great. It works for them. That's their system. I don't want nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what anyone else does when it comes to bidding roofs or doing things. All I know is what we do. I don't care what anyone else does. Tell me what you do. That's great for you. I'm happy for you. It works for you. Obviously, it's working for you if you're doing it. Good for you. But what we do is unique compared to what you do. I don't know what you do. Don't need to know. I don't need to know what you charge because it don't mean nothing to me.
Yeah, I think everybody's business individually is special to them, and nobody knows it like they do. And if they're willing to sit down and map out what is already in their mind, then they're going to be able to create something out of that because they can put it on paper. And that will be unique, and it'll drive that company forward, knowing that information. And that's really basically what we did. It was already there. We just needed a way to organize it. And once we organized it, it really changed the game.
So, okay, so that's, early 2000s. So the next 10 years after you invest this time and you do, you're implementing this over the next 10 years, what were some key takeaways? What's the makeup of the business look like? Bringing people in? Was there any other family that came and worked? I mean, you're talking to 2014 at this point. So,
well, I mean, the biggest event I remember was 2008 downturn. That was a growth spurt for us, and the competition just left the marketplace.
Yeah.
And it was like we had customers running to us. I know it was a downturn for a lot of people, but it was a booming business for us. And we have been growing ever since 2008.
Yeah, 08 was a great year.
It
was
was.
really nervous because you thought, everybody in our industry, every manufacturer, every supplier, all their sales went down on a national level. I don't know about individual guys, but on a national level, it all went down. I mean, and some of it went down 20%. And we just, you're working the whole time thinking, my gosh, man, we have so much work.
Why do you think that happened?
I think we were in the right market.
Yeah, and we had just gotten Henry's system fully. It took 3 years to get Henry's system, about 25% of it integrated into Technique Roofing. And his marketing and how he sells to, the customers. Henry always looked at it, this customer has this set of friends he talks to every day, okay? And they're just like him or very similar. If you do a good job for him and you ask him, hey, could you tell these guys that Technique Roofing? Well, right away, we become the expert. And that's really what started the growth. Our customers started selling for us. And it was a phenomenal thing.
Yeah.
And just happened to be around that year, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it helped us be in a little bit of a healthcare. Healthcare was good. We were in that market of healthcare. We just kind of got into it, and we just, and just really blossomed for us. We really started fixing some problems. We were traveling, going where they needed us to go, and we really hit a home run with that, I think. But it wasn't because we were looking to get into healthcare. It was just we sold a job to a guy in healthcare. We did a really good job, and that relationship just blossomed. And really, when people talk about marketing, and I'm not a marketing expert by any means, but there's a lot of ways to market. You can go out and advertise, beat the bush, and that's probably going to work really well for you. And it works really well out here. You see it all the time. Our approach was, maybe because we weren't geared towards that, our marketing was, we're going to do the best job for this guy. We're going to, make him look good to his bosses, because we got to remember, we're working for someone that's normally answers to somebody else. And we just never want him to have to answer for our sake. So we want to make him look as best as we can, make him look really good, make him look like he made a really good decision hiring Technique Roofing. And that's really what we try to do. And that's really marketing, making him look good. You're really marketing yourself.
What's customer service?
Level. Yeah, customer service. Call it what you want. Yeah. And I think we took a lot of our dollars, or a lot of our new customer acquisitions, I think, came from a little bit of that thinking. Like Kurt said, hey, you need to call these guys. They're doing a great job for us. Like we were like a little secret to some people. You know what I mean? You need to. That's how we ended up in Steubenville. That's how we ended up these places. We didn't go down there and advertise.
No, these guys. I've never heard of you guys. I can't believe I haven't.
275 miles from home. We didn't go down there and advertise. We did a job for one guy, and it's like we belong to the mafia.
It is. I mean, we literally have millions and millions of square feet down in Steubenville, a place we've never ran an ad in the paper.
No,
we've never advertised in a school or anything. It's 100% word of mouth.
And it was all organically done through one guy, to two guys, to four guys, to 8 guys. done on, not that they heard us on the radio, I think, not that that's not them are really good things to do, but for us, it was all done in a slow, methodical, doing the same thing over and over, year after year, and those came back to pay big dividends. Wasn't a big hurry, wasn't trying to grow myself out of, try to spend a bunch of money to grow myself. No, it was slowly, methodically work and do one right after another.
And the fact that I think, too, like down there, one of the things that I learned in the last couple of years is that you may not think like in a city a chief building official is important, but we got chief building officials telling people when they call in, have Technique Roofing do your roof. They're really good because they go out and check our projects. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now we got this salesman. We don't pay, but he sold us 2 jobs in 1 year.
Because we embraced him. We didn't look at him as an adversary of someone that comes out, as an inspector or a permitting process. We looked at him as our friends, or at least approached.
But
it
the
that
point
way.
is, the customer looks at him as an expert, even though he's not. We know he's not in the profession, but the customer looks at him as an expert.
So what do you like? You say you're just doing high quality work, and that's how you get all your jobs. But I mean, you have to sell. So I'm sure Kurt was selling pretty hard, during this time where you're just doing jobs, and it seems like they're just coming in like nothing.
Well, we really had to do high quality work because Kurt was writing checks his body couldn't cash. So in order not to make him look like a liar, we had to do really good.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, you told him what? Why would you tell him that? Really? So, what was your question? Was sell?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, at the core of it, you're still a sales organization. You got to sell. I mean, you're word of mouth is great, but you do have to meet these people. And
We started doing marketing maybe in 20.
We did the restaurant show.
We started doing trade shows when we hired Mark in 2000, 2002.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
2000.
we were doing an ice cream show before that, but
I mean,
it was a small business.
if they fell in the wintertime,
Yeah.
we did some trade shows, and we sold us at trade shows too.
And we did cold calling. We tried.
well, I mean, trade shows
we
aren't
did
cheap either.
pamphlets.
They're expensive.
I would say most of our marketing was done as emergency markening.
Yes.
We need work.
We need work. We're in their office and we're cold calling.
It's the old saying that you never advertise your a guy never does much advertising, but then when he wants to sell his business, he goes out and advertises it. That was us.
Yes, I mean, if I looked on the schedule and I'm like, oh my, we only got 3 or 4. I'm on the phone calling all day long, trying to get somebody to answer that phone.
We were really, really, really into marketing come January.
And you have to remember, back then, people answered their phones a lot more than they do today. So cold calling was very, very successful. And it was an easy way to make new contacts.
It was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you could buy a service and you get the numbers and you'd actually get in there and you'd call them and they would answer, kind of like fax machine back then was, you know what I mean?
And and we tried the thing with Mark as a salesman, and he was out of town, and we didn't really. We hired somebody, but we never really committed to training him. We just, because we didn't really want to take the time, because we had our job to do, and he was more like a tag along, and if we had time, we'd look after him.
Yeah, it was like a
So after maybe
accidental training he got.
2 years, we brought him back here.
Luckily he came back, yeah. He moved back.
And then we really got to know Mark.
That was best. That was a really good move.
And then we started to realize, hey, this guy has some pretty special gifts that we don't have. And
There was no spell check yet, was there?
no.
That was ugly. That was real ugly. He was a
Well, we had Lisa's mom. Well, I had Lisa's mom. She was pretty good at spell checking.
She had a big red pen. A lot of marks on your paper.
It was the same size red pen as the other ones. It just seemed big because it was all over the
I used to go
paper.
to Mark, and he used to feel like my teacher. He'd grade my paper, and then pretty soon I'm like, "Hey, why don't you just write these proposals for me? Why am I doing this?"
Yeah.
I mean, why am I muttering around writing them? Why don't you write them? Because you're the guy that knows how, and I'll just put some bullet points together and make us look good.
So through the 90s, I had seen various companies' proposals, and I really started working on refining my proposal. Because I noticed people really, once you left, all they had was what you left them if they hadn't made a decision. And so I started taking Mark with me, and we would talk about this proposal, and he would critique me in my sales calls. He wouldn't say anything, but he'd listen. And we get back in the car, he'd be like, "Kurt, do you realize you said this?" And I'm like, "What? I did?"
Yeah, he's a great listener. If you want someone to listen, you go with him. He'd take him. He'll listen to everything you say, and then you'd walk on the car and be like, "Well, how did I do?" And he'd always start out with, "Well, you did okay." But do you realize what you said? I said, "Well, it made sense at the time I said it." He goes, "Yeah, I don't know about that." And and that was the first time I ever had anyone say, "You sure you really want to say that?" It ain't like you've filmed yourself or recorded yourself telling someone, how you're going to approach their project. So you really never re-listened to yourself because you were always like on your own. I was like, you're on an island by yourself. I'm on an island by myself. And we never did any tag teaming really because I can't go with you. If I go with you, the whole damn company stops. You know what I mean? What are the rest of the guys going to do?
Well,
and if you go with me, well, who the hell is going to sell anything today? And so we never had anyone with us to say, "Hey, that was really the beginning of something special." I think.
So what point is it, like 2008, 2010, when you came into the office, like mainly full time, like, or at least over the majority of the week doing like project management and stuff like that, or?
I imagine 1998 I was in there a little bit because of the situation we had going on in my life.
I would imagine around 2000.
2000.
I always tried to be out in the field with the guys in the summertime, more or less. But but at that time we had a real large crew.
Yeah, we were probably around the $3 million mark, right into $3 million at that point in time.
For some reason, the stories I've heard, you were out there to like last year basically working full time. So I mean, it's
I work full time to this day.
No, I'm just saying
Well, I want to say 10 years ago. I was still in the summertime trying to be up there to help the guys because we kind of like started at second crew. And
so that's kind of when you had to watch them.
And the second crew was more of that smaller size
restaurants.
Crew. Yeah, restaurants. Remods. New imaging stuff like that. So we started at probably at least 09, probably 10.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because we wanted to have two crews. Again, let's go back to the beginning. We never wrote the business plan down. We had a business. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to have 20 guys. No, it was like, hey, man, I just want to have some money to like buy a lawnmower.
Buy a lawnmower.
I mean, I had this.
I don't have to push mow anymore.
I had this thought in my head, when you say that, and I always thought, man, if I just had $100,000 in the bank. Oh my God! I would never have to work another day of my life. I mean, I would be the richest guy around.
Right. We didn't realize what the tax rate was either then, no. So then, I'd say we needed to get that second crew, and when we got that second crew, it takes a lot to keep everybody organized. And we worked out of a really, really small building where we only would get the exact stuff we need. I mean, we'd get it in, and it'd have to go out. So it really had to be organized. And then I imagine and I don't know if I think we just started doing repairs then. And that really took one guy full time. Wow, I was like, we're going to have one guy. All he's going to do is fix for us. Where are we ever going to find enough for him to fix? But, it was like we had enough repair business, and it was like a pain in our ass. Okay, because we had no one really to do it. But the guy coming home on a rain day had to take 3 other guys or 4 guys with him and go look at a roof to fix it. He never wanted to do that because he was already soaking wet as it was, and really wasn't something he wanted to do. And he never really had his heart into it, you know. So,
and plus, you know, I always had this emotional thing. Like, when a customer would call me, I'm like, you had them put your roof on, now you want me to fix it? Why don't you call them back, have them fix it? You know what I mean? It's just like, I wasn't thinking clearly.
yeah. So when I kind of came in more full time, we did 2 things. We had an extra crew and we started a repair business. We embraced it
Because we figured when we started running Henry's system, we realized we were making money doing repairs.
Yeah, we started doing these repairs. I'm like, man, this is.
They didn't seem so bad.
No.
I'm like, these guys are willing to pay me to fix your roof, and well, you know, and it was really, you know, wow, you know, I'm not even charging that much, and it's really low risk, but yet they're happy, and it's like a sales tool. It's like your marketing tool. Fixing this guy's roof. To, you know, I'm going to fix it for 6 years. Oh my gosh, 6 years is a long time. I think no, you know, but you know, you want to fix it for 6 years. You know, and he gets his budget around. It was a whole way of selling without actually selling. It was like verifying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's your proms, and it was a whole marketing thing. So, you know, repairs.
Because still, really, at that point in time, we still had very little sales force.
We had just what we had from the beginning.
Yeah, because we were wearing multiple hats, and sales was like the emergency thing.
That was in February.
Low, we're gonna start doing sales.
January, February, we were great salesmen.
Yeah.
You know, you're not on the roof every day. You don't have that, like, you're not, so you're not controlling the jobs as much because you're not out there. You have less control of the quality because you're not on site. So how does, like, you know, going through that, how did that work? How was that transition? Because that's a big transition for a lot of people when they stop, you know, in the day-to-day and start working on sales and in the business more. How like, what are some takeaways from that you can think of?
Well, when you no longer, so there was a time, it was crazy, that I thought, if my hand don't touch every process, it's going to be screwed up. You know.
See, I heard the same thing from Kurt even when you were on the project.
He was hallucinating though.
No, I believed that a roof couldn't be done without me for a long time.
So you had to.
I was pretty naive.
You had to come to a point where, you know, is it going to get done with this? You know, it was a personal thing. You know, to me, it was a personal thing. And to other people, it might just be their job. So I guess, you know, you try to lead by example, and then you try to maybe leave the guy that's going to, you know, the most skilled guy may not be the guy you want running your job. You know, and, you know, just because you're the most skilled, you know the most, not necessarily means that that's the guy you want representing who you are. So, you know, that was something you'd had to figure out, who's going to be the guy that's going to represent me, who's going to be the guy to take the little bit of time at the end of the day to make sure everything's done right, you know. And then a whole nother thing came, and it was like, well, I didn't have to call. Nobody had to call the customer when we were done. I would talk to the customer before I leave. Yeah. Hey, are you happy? How's this? You know, like this. Hey, let's walk around the building. You know, it meant something to me to pick up everything around the building, make sure we got it picked up. So now I think what it taught you is that, you know, people don't mind if there's a problem, but they want to make sure they have someone to tell their problem to, or someone to explain, hey, you know, I loved what they got. I mean, I'll get this all the time. Man, your guys did a great job. I'm so happy with them. They did great. Well, just don't automatically feel that's going to happen to 100% of the time. You always got to reach out to that guy and say, hey, how did that go? You know, and a lot of times, like, hey, it went great today, man. They worked so hard. I get that all the time. Because roofing, I don't know if anyone noticed, anyone ever did it, but it's not an easy job. It's really hot. It's really cold. You get wet, and it's a really hard job. So these people really appreciate someone who works hard for them. You know,
I think also they really appreciate it if the guy that's up there working really hard stops in and just says hi and says, hey, here's what we did today, and here's what we're going to do tomorrow. And do you have any questions? Yeah. So we started trying to push our guys, you know, hey, get that relationship with that owner while you're there. Keep him updated, you know, ask him if he's got any concerns.
So, I mean, obviously we're here now, right? So you guys started it back in, 1992. Or was it 91?
92.
92.
September of 92.
And, you know, this is where we're at. We're we're all here. Like, I mean, there's a lot of family here working now. And, I mean, it's 29 years, 30 years in.
About 92 to 2020.
So, I mean, you know, people look into the future a lot. Like, but, you know, did you ever think, like, how far off is what you, like, hoped, you know, this could become to what it is, like, right now?
You really got to be put in a place where we were working for an existing company A we were working for.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, they didn't have a clue. And they were very well financed. They were a general contractor. And you just like, what are these guys doing? You know, can't they see what they're doing wrong? So fast forward, we go work for ourselves. Like, you know, and when you say, did you sit in that chair and think, man, 30 years from now, this is where I'm going to be? No, man, no way. If you could possibly write that down, I'd like to see that, because it's one day built on top of another day, of many years, always doing the same thing, always trying to do what's best for the company, and having that stick-to-itiveness. Not like, I'm going to jump across the fence because it's greener over there. You know, it's hard, long fall days that you got to sacrifice. And I think with that sacrifice brings you the ability to kind of get where you're at today. And it may not be a sexy thing when you talk like that, but to have that, you know, long game, boots on the ground, it ain't going to be easy. You're going to earn it if you want it. And you got to go out there and you got to earn it. You got to put your time in. You got to work at it. You got to be a little lucky maybe. You got to maybe have a couple breaks. And you know, you got to watch what you spend.
I would echo pretty much that same sentiment. I know I had big dreams, but the busyness of work like sucks them dreams out from underneath you, and it gives you like a reality check. And then time starts to speed up on you. And all of a sudden 10 years goes by. Mm-hmm. And you worked 10 years and you didn't even realize it. And then, you know, you start to look at your business and you're starting to say, where am I going with this? That was probably the first time I asked myself that question, you know, where am I going with this? You know, and that's really when we started looking for something and we met Henry. And then we started really getting some direction of what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. And maybe it was that point in time that we started working on the business and not in the business. And that's when we started really to transform the company.
That's a good answer. What do you think, like, you know, you guys have been around, so you've seen a lot of companies that been here and are gone now, family companies. I mean, most companies that start go out of business after 3 years. Very little make it past 10. Very little make money. What do you, like, as far as like family companies you've seen, what are some things that you've seen in a family company that's gone wrong for people maybe listening that are in a spot right now?
We did realize one thing, you know, although we don't work equally the same, we know we got to get paid equally the same. So, because remember, there's wives involved too. You know, even though they're not part of the business, they are part of the business. So, you know, I would recommend equal pay, regardless of the job you're doing, so that you take that jealousy out, and then, you know what your job is and do it. And it's, to me, it's just like marriage. Once you're committed, you're committed. I mean, yeah, you're not going to win every time, and you're going to have some give and take, and you just have to realize that.
Yeah, whenever you're in a business with somebody, and you've heard all the horror stories. I don't need to even, you know, think of one to tell you because everyone knows it. I guess the thing you got to ask yourself is, you know, are you the most important thing, or you want to be part of something? is, is, getting along is really sometimes hard to do, but you have to tell yourself that's the best thing for the situation is cooperation. Yeah, you might have a problem. It might get a little heated. As we were younger, we probably had more heated conversations than we do when we're older. But it wasn't because we weren't as passionate as we are now. I mean, we just learned how to communicate a little differently then than we do now. So, being in a business with whoever you're in with is like a marriage. So if you got married, this is the same deal. I'm telling you, it's like the same deal. And that's what I do. That's what we tell people when we put their roofs on for 20 years. And I look at when I put your roof on, if I did a roof for you, I'm telling you, if you're committed to this relationship, we're going to be there with you for the next 20 plus years. And I tell people that, and they sometimes look at me like I'm on, but I really mean it because I'm approaching our relationship with the customer the same way I'm approaching my relationship with my business partner. No matter we have up or downs, we're going to still be here.
I mean, I like a lot of people would say the same thing, but like there's a lot of people that are out there, I mean, that, not all marriages work, not all business partners work. People have to make hard decisions sometimes, so what do you see, like, what have you seen, like, in companies around the area that you've seen where maybe people should have made a decision sooner or...
Well, I don't believe a lot of companies, they might take on partners, but they weren't committed when they started. It was all fun and games, just like dating. She can't do anything wrong, but once you're married, you start finding all these flaws. And so the commitment was never there to begin with, And that's really what you have to be in business, because you're going to struggle. There's going to be times you don't have money. I mean, there's going to be times neither one of you can take a paycheck, and you might not have gas to put in the car. And there's going to be struggles. If that commitment isn't there, you're not going to make it. And it's going to happen right away. You're going to be tested by fire sooner rather than later.
And I think that's why you see businesses fail real early on. Mm-hmm. And I think our business could have failed really early on because the first year we were in business, I think I made like $10,000. And I don't know, maybe that's a lot to some people in 92, but it didn't seem like a lot to me then. And, it was a real struggle. But, I had a really well-respected guy. And I was telling him one time, I have an employee problem with this, and I have this problem with this, and I wasn't. Maybe it came across as complaining. To me, it didn't seem like a complaint. I was just telling him some of my strikes because he's a really like a mentor of mine. This guy is, and he's listening to me. And I finish up my little spew to him, and he looks at me, and this is a guy I respect highly. He goes, "You know what, Keith? Maybe you're the problem and not everybody else." Oh man, I was hoping for something more wiser that I could really complain with, And I really someone I really well respected, and has been in business for many years. His grandfather was in business. He took it to the third generation. So that's really rare, third generation. Now it's going to the fourth generation. I really think a lot of these people, there ain't many people that can make it to the fourth generation. I mean, it's got to be 5% of the businesses out there that are started. And he told me about his grandpa and how he almost broke the company, and then his dad came in, and then he took it over. Now and when he told me that, man, that just really stuck with me. Maybe I need to look within myself before I start pointing my finger at everybody else. Maybe what I'm doing ain't always the right thing. Maybe what I'm doing could be done better. I don't know. I don't think self-doubt is a good thing to be walking around with all the time, but self-reflection is something you should always try to do a little bit of.
I think it's more of ownership than doubting yourself. You're just you're just saying like, I'm responsible and I'm accountable for this, even though I'm not, but it's my business.
I mean, you're never going to screw up if you don't do nothing. I mean, that's what,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're going to screw up. I mean, the only way you don't screw up is if you don't get off the couch.
I think it's way less than 5%. Most businesses, I bet it's 0.001% of companies make it to fourth generation.
Well, whatever it is, I don't run into a lot of them, and I'm a question asker when I go look at people's stuff because I'm really interested in what people are doing and how they operate, and so I don't know what that number is, but it's rare, I bet.
Well, definitely.
Yeah, because I think it's just far easier to quit. It's far easier to
Sell,
to take the little money and run,
cash out.
and say we just couldn't get along. But I think it's much more beneficial and much better if you can work it out and get along and build a stronger relationship over time. Then you're going to see a lot brighter future.
There's a lot of us kids here, your guys' kids working here. Like, what do you see happening? What do you hope to happen over the next 5 years, 10 years?
I mean, to me, if I was giving you guys advice, is, I guess I'd tell you, one, to find your place in the company, and then take the foundation that we have put here, a system that works, and start adding bricks on it, and put them in square and put them in right, and just keep adding to it, because I think it's got a really great foundation, and it's well liked and it's well known. And I realize sales is super easy right now, but you're going to want to keep doing that, because someday that's probably going to change.
Comes in cycles.
But I think that's really the key, is if you guys can get along and not worry about what each other's doing, don't worry about how much vacation they took, how much time they took off, just all make the commitment and go and do your jobs. You're going to be fine. But we always try to stay in our lane, so to speak.
Yeah, and leading into that, I think it's really important that maybe you want to do things a little more cleaner, okay? Or maybe you want to do things, some people say to me, yeah, Keith, that's shit's all in your head, and you never put it down anywhere, or you never made it, applicable to somebody else. Well, yes, that's very true. I don't have a disagreement with that. But I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to do things that this works. Well, it worked for 30 years. Whether some of it was by happenstance or, most all the good things happen for a reason, because they were worked at. And so take what we got. If you ask me what the next generation do, take what we got and use that as your foundation. This is basically, like I said, it with the bricks. You don't need to swerve. You might just need to miss the pothole maybe, but you don't need to go far. If it works, use it. And I think, to me, it's all about relationships. It's a relationship between two partners. It's a relationship between family members, your wife, your customers, your vendors, trying to solve people's problems.
And I would add that, Keith and I, a lot of times, we're on the same page. We just didn't do things without asking, even though we really could have did anything we want. It didn't matter. If I was going to buy something, I made a point to say, hey, Keith, you think I got to get this? Even if it was $1,500, because it only took me 10 seconds. Now if I knew it was emergency, we had to have it because of a job, that was different. But if I was buying a cap for my truck, or if I was buying a truck, or we were buying we always just bounced it off each other very casually.
Oh, and I think you do that not for justification. You do that for respect.
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough respect to do that every time, it will never be returned to you. So you may think the littlest thing ain't a big deal until it is a big deal. But how do you not get that little thing? You do it. You just do it. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Because you're going to want that Well, your partners are going to want, you're going to want that from your partners back. You know, you want it from your wife. Well, you want it from your partners. You want it from your coworkers. And I think if you do it, they'll be like, yeah, I should probably say something to him because he's, he never does anything without saying to me, and it will happen. So I think it's very important for that communication not to be an organized event to communicate like today's, and it's good to do it because I think organization has to do it, but I hear it all the time from guys. I hear it all the time from my customers. Keith, I got to meet at 11. I got a meeting on Monday morning at 9. It's company-wide. We can't miss it. It's got to be there. And I think that's great. And that works for that organization, that style. But remember, whether you do it in that meeting or you don't do it in that meeting, someone should still communicate what they're going to be doing with the other people in their organization. And it don't always have to be in a meeting setting. It can just be, this is what I'm doing. Here it is. I walk in there. I get it over with. And as the organization gets bigger, I understand it changes and the dynamics of it change, the personalities of it change. But at the end of the day, the same things that's working between 2 can work between 4, can work between 6.